killing our people? What are you arresting our people for?
I do not know that.
You do not know? What are they doing in your van? Why did you go and take them from that Sparta camp when they'd done nothing to you?
And in a sense, she became a symbol, not only of Nelson Mandela, but also of the ANC inside the country.
She was ostracized, put in jail, solitary confinement, and she didn't disappear.
Police claimed that gasoline bombs were being made in the house.
And they had to create that kind of atmosphere to present us as a violent people who were manufacturing bombs in the backfield of the Free State.
Would you be prepared to take up a gun and kill someone in order to achieve your freedom?
Now I know I can. There's thinking people, and there's people who are determined to survive, and there's fighters. She's an activist. She's not the type of person who can be voiceless.
Apartheid is a criminal act. They're white men, 3.5 million. We are 30 million.
And people on the ground know who their leaders are. There's nothing that you can do successfully to alter that relationship. I just think it was too much power to have as a couple, and they had to get rid of this.
We were the cannon fodder, we were the foot soldiers, and we were exposed to the viciousness of apartheid. I was the one who felt that we had over-negotiated. In the process, we lost it. And I warned at the time that we over-negotiated, and the truth was we may have lost the land again in the process. Our struggle was a struggle for land. It was all about the return of the land to the owners of the land, not the silly notion of driving the white man to the sea, the notion of fighting back to get back our land. And the problem at the time, which I foresaw, and we disagreed with Matiba over it, we say, yes, you say, let us negotiate. In the process of negotiation, we say the land belongs to all who live in it. The doors of landing shall be open. Now, how were we going to buy the land back from those who had stolen it? Because we were not going to seize the land back without compensation. There would have been grave consequences if we had done that. The bloodbath would still be continuing to this day. I believed that perhaps something went wrong when we were negotiating, when we over-negotiated, and we could have probably reached other decisions other than the willing seller, willing buyer. What are we going to buy the land with? I told Mandela in 1990, when the talk started, that you are going to postpone the revolution the way you are going in your deliberations at Odessa. 20 years from the day we hoist this freedom fled, the people will be back in the streets demonstrating against us with the same memorandum we carried to the wars. You have postponed the revolution. Gaza, it will be a damning freedom we are going to give people, because the revolution will repeat itself.
I'm a typical country girl. I was born in the backveld of Pondoland. Perhaps I am what I am today because of that childhood. I loved my childhood. I loved the country in which I ran barefoot. I wore a shoe for the first time when I went to secondary school. I grew up like any other little country girl. My father was a teacher. He was the principal of the school in which I was. So he taught me history. There were 11 of us. I come from a family of 11 children. I'm just one of those in the middle. There was nothing particular about me. My grandfather, my father's father, had 29 wives. He was a chief in our region. So we grew up in a very large family. I was heading cattle, sheep, and goats like any other country girl. I grew up looking after cattle. I grew up milking cows, and I loved my country. My father taught me history. And he always said, the white man's version of history is this. And then he would tell us the actual history. For instance, I recall when he used to teach us about what we have in our history is the 9 Xhosa wars. Wars that were fought by our forefathers. Frontier wars, where they fought the white man, whom they regarded as an intruder in this country. He would relish telling us these stories of our heroes. He would tell us about Ncika, Tsikana, Makana, and he is the one who taught me that Dingaan and Chaga were not barbarians, for instance. Those are the great Zulu chiefs who fought the white man. And he, in fact, addressed Chaga as General Chaga during our lessons. But he would then tell us that when the inspector comes, we shouldn't address them as generals. We should address them as they are addressed in the books. That is how I learned the history of my country. My father was in the old Transkei territorial council. There was something like that that administered the Transkei at the time. That was under the British rule. And he used to go away from home for periods of 6 months sometimes. And when he came back with stories of our heroes and how they were fighting for their fatherland. That was the childhood I experienced.
At the age of 9, Winnie suffered a devastating loss. Her mother died. The impact was enormous. Like many children forced to grow up too quickly, she learned lessons about hardship earlier than most. Responsibility arrived before adulthood. Pain arrived before understanding, and resilience became a necessity rather than a choice. Years later, many would see Winnie Mandela as almost indestructible. But long before she became a symbol of strength, she was simply a young girl learning how to survive disappointment. Education became her pathway forward. She excelled in school and eventually left the Eastern Cape to pursue further studies.
Winnie completed her social work degree and turned down a scholarship to the United States. She was exposed to the appalling social conditions of black people in the worker dormitories called townships that surrounded the white cities.
I dealt mostly with children. I dealt with hunger, with poverty directly. And the fact that there was no way of changing those conditions other than changing the whole status quo.
Politicized by her work, Winnie got involved in the African National Congress, or ANC, a progressive organization struggling to improve black living conditions and fighting for their basic human rights.
But history still had another surprise waiting for her. In 1957, a friend arranged a meeting. At first glance, there was nothing extraordinary about it. People meet every day. Most meetings change nothing. This one would change South African history.
I was at work at Baragwanath Hospital, and I got a call from a man who introduced himself over the phone as Nelson Mandela. He said he wanted to see me and discuss certain issues with me. I was petrified. I was so shocked at receiving that call. I wondered what I'd... Then on the appointed day we met, and it transpired he wanted me to help raise funds for the then treason trial. That is how I met my husband.
After a whirlwind romance, they were married on 19th June 1958 in a Methodist service in the Transkei area. Winnie settled in Mandela's home in Soweto at 8115 Orlando West. Nelson continued his political work, and they spent very little time together.
When Nelson was underground, this is where the strong woman came out. Her husband was underground, carrying the struggle from underground, and Winnie was left to look after not only her immediate family, but also Nelson's mother and relatives in the Transkei, and she coped with it very well.
Nelson declared, "I've had to separate myself from my dear wife and children and live as an outlaw in my own land." Since all open political activity was denied him, Mandela had gone underground to organize a 3-day national strike, a stay-at-home. In spite of Sharpeville, the stay-at-home was yet another attempt to effect change by peaceful means. The government's reply was again violent. Police and army were mobilized to force people back to work.
There are many people who feel that it is useless and futile for us to continue talking peace and non-violence against a government whose reply is only savage attacks on an unarmed and defenseless people. And I think the time has come for us to consider, in the light of our experiences in this stay-at-home, whether the methods which we have applied so far are adequate.
A half-century of nonviolent effort had failed, so a small group was formed under Mandela, which began to bomb symbols of authority, such as power lines and pass offices. Early in 1962, Mandela left South Africa illegally to travel to newly independent African countries, seeking help in training guerrilla squads. This new fighting arm of the African National Congress was called Umkhonto weSizwe, Spear of the Nation.
When he returned, I also saw him, and I was always blindfolded. I never knew exactly where he was. And that was calculated to protect us and the children. We were very small at the time. That was the last time we ever were together as husband and wife.
Mandela was the most wanted man in South Africa, the object of a massive manhunt. He must have known that sooner or later he would be caught. When he was betrayed by an informer, there was no evidence to link him with sabotage. Instead, for leaving the country illegally and for organizing the 1961 stay-at-home, he was sentenced to 5 years. While Mandela was serving this sentence, a small cache of weapons was discovered in Rivonia near Johannesburg. 8 men were arrested, the multiracial high command of Spear of the Nation. Papers were found incriminating a 9th, Mandela. The 9 men were charged with the capital crime of sabotage and seeking to overthrow the government by force.
And then came the moment that changed everything. In 1962, Nelson Mandela was arrested. The following year, he stood trial alongside other anti-apartheid leaders in what became known as the Rivonia trial. The verdict shocked the world. Life imprisonment. Mandela would spend the next 27 years behind bars. For Nelson Mandela, prison was beginning. For Winnie Mandela, another kind of prison was about to begin, because while the world would come to know the prisoner on Robben Island, few yet realized that outside those prison walls, a new political figure was about to emerge. One who would become every bit as famous, every bit as controversial, and perhaps even more feared by the apartheid state. The wife left behind was about to become a symbol of resistance, and South Africa would never be the same again.
Go!
You are under arrest. You might please.
I said don't touch me.
I told you that you are under arrest. I'm not hurting a child.
You are hurting this child.
You may come with me, please.
I am coming out of my own. Don't get me out of the car.
I'm waiting for you.
Don't touch me.
Right, I'm waiting for you.
I told you I don't even know whether you have got AIDS. Stop touching me. You are dragging my grandchild out of the car.
I don't have AIDS. You just accompany me, please.
Why do you bring this child up? Why do you bring this child? I say just come along. Don't do that. Don't drag me. I'm coming. Don't drag me.
Right.
Don't drag me.
She should be coming. Accompany me.
I know what arrest means.
Right.
Don't drag me.
Right.
I am coming along. You, the workers of this land, you, the mothers of this country, you are gathered here as testimony to the effect that you are the rightful owners of this land. And towards the fulfillment of those aspirations, you have given up your lives for, our children have given up their lives for. We are here today to tell you that that day is not far when we shall lead you to freedom. Amandla! Amandla! Amandla!
When Nelson Mandela was sentenced to life imprisonment in 1964, the apartheid government believed it had removed one of its greatest enemies. The strategy seemed simple: lock away the leaders, destroy the movement, crush resistance. For a while, it appeared to be working. The ANC was banned. Many activists fled into exile. Others were imprisoned. Some disappeared entirely. The apartheid state seemed unstoppable, but there was one problem. Nelson Mandela had become bigger than a man. He had become an idea, and ideas are difficult to imprison, especially when someone is keeping them alive. That someone was Winnie Mandela. At first, she was simply trying to survive. She was a young mother raising children while her husband sat in a prison cell hundreds of kilometers away. The government monitored her constantly. Security police watched her movements, tapped her phones, opened her mail, followed her everywhere. The goal was not merely to punish her. The goal was to isolate her, to make her disappear, to make people forget the Mandela name. Instead, the opposite happened. The more the government targeted Winnie, the more attention she attracted. Every arrest generated sympathy. Every act of harassment strengthened her image. Every attempt to silence her seemed to make her voice louder. And Winnie quickly learned something important. The apartheid government feared visibility. They feared symbols. They feared stories. So she refused to disappear. She attended funerals. She met activists. She spoke whenever she could. She carried herself with a defiance that frustrated the authorities. If Nelson Mandela had become the symbol behind bars, Winnie Mandela was becoming the symbol outside them. The government responded with escalating force. In 1969, they struck hard. Winnie was arrested under the Terrorism Act. She was placed in solitary confinement for nearly 17 months.
I was not allowed out of the cell at all. When I was taken out, it couldn't have been more than 10 minutes or 15 minutes. Then of course I was never taken outside. I would just exercise in front of the cell door by going up and down, up and down. The mind finds it very difficult to adjust to such solitude. It is such utter torture that I could feel that my mind was so tortured with lack of doing something and not communicating with anyone that I would find myself talking to the children. I would think I am thinking about them, and actually find myself in the end conducting conversations with my children as if they are with me in the cell. It becomes so difficult to keep sane with absolutely nothing to do that I would actually hunt for ants. If I had an ant in the cell or a fly, then I would regard myself as having company for the day. When I was given anything, if anything at all, it was the Bible. One day this Swanee Pool stood at the cell door and flung the Bible at my face. And he threw it and said, "There you are, pray. Pray so that your God can get you out of this cell." Sarcastic. Yes, he said I must pray for my God to take me out of the cell. And he also said, "Winnie, you are politically naked. We have finished you this time. This is your end." I was taken for interrogation a month after we had been in detention. My own interrogation, of course, is absolutely nothing worse than any of the things that have happened to those of us who are opposed to apartheid. I was picked up on Monday from the cell, and I was delivered back into my cell on a Saturday. I was interrogated right through, day and night, for 7 days and 7 nights. As they changed the teams, Swanee Pool would rub his hands and say he is waiting for that moment when they shall break me completely. By the time they interrogated me, they knew everything. They knew all about my political activities at the time. And the African National Congress, of course, was a banned organization, which meant that whatever political activities I was involved in at that time were underground political activities. There was nothing they didn't know. They had managed to break a few of those they had interrogated before me.
When she was eventually released, she emerged different, harder, more confrontational.
In 1971, a gunman was seen prowling the yard of her Soweto home. The following year, 2 men tried to strangle her in her bed, but her screams attracted neighbors and the men fled.
But what I went through, that personal experience, hardened me so much. The security branch had made me the soldier at heart I am today.
I think it's very difficult for people on the outside to fully appreciate the kind of experience that Mrs. Madikizela-Mandela went through during her own journey from the early 1960s.
I knew then that somehow there had to be a political crisis in this country for us to reach the ultimate goal.
The government blamed Winnie for the June 1976 youth uprising and banished her to a small farming town called Brandfort. The house in Brandfort had a bare earthen floor, and she only had a small coal stove as winter approached. Her fridge was housed at the police station because there was no electricity. She had to fetch water down the street in a bucket and heat it herself. She could not speak the local languages. The police watched her day and night.
The government's own version of a prison without walls, a prison outside prison. I engaged myself heavily in numerous projects for the community. In a way, it became a livable prison, which was a point of departure for me to serve my people, where I had been placed without any choice.
Winnie challenged racist attitudes in town, shopped in white shops, and disregarded her restrictions. She began a clinic, a soup kitchen, and initiated vegetable garden projects. She looked so brave, but really, she was traumatized.
So she gets there, and she revolutionizes the whole place. And she enters the shops where normally black people are not allowed to go. With the result that Afrikaners in Brandfort wanted her to be moved from Brandfort as a place of banishment to be taken to another place, because they were saying that since Winnie came to Brandfort, the Kaffirs were very shifty. And of course, the other people, seeing the way she's fighting the system and the oppression, they start taking it from her, you know, it becomes infectious.
I actually get surprised that people get surprised at what I ultimately became.
I am pleading with Mrs. Mandela today in front of the world that please, Mrs. Mandela, please give us our son back. Even if Lola is dead, let Mrs. Mandela give us the remainings of our son.
I acknowledge Mrs. Madikizela-Mandela's role in the history of our struggle. And yet, one has to say that something went wrong, horribly, badly wrong. Many, many love you. Many, many say you should have been where you ought to be. People out there who want to embrace you. I still embrace you because I love you. And I love you very deeply. I beg you. I beg you. Please. You are a great person. and you don't know how your greatness would be enhanced if you were to say, sorry, things went wrong, forgive me.
3 months in the late 1980s, which will haunt Winnie Madikizela-Mandela for the rest of her life. This week, the world was told that it was Winnie Madikizela-Mandela herself who killed youth activist Stompie Sepe and who ordered the deaths of Dr. Abubakar Asfat and Lolo Sono. In a special edition of our program on Tuesday, we broadcast a BBC documentary outlining these allegations. In the past few weeks, we've conducted our own investigation in an attempt to make sense of all these allegations and counter-allegations. Special Report team member Benedict Mutau visited the ex-leader of the Mandela United Football Club, Jerry Richardson, in Leeuwkop prison on Friday, where he is serving a life sentence for the murder of Stompie Sepe. To our surprise, Richardson confessed to the murder of somebody completely different, a young girl called Cookie Zwane, and alleged that Winnie Mandela had ordered him to kill her.
Yes, what I can tell you about is this one, which I was never charged for, the case of Cookie Zwane. I've even written it in my affidavit. I want to tell the TRC about Cookie Zwane. The fact that Cookie Zwane was killed is because Mrs. Mandela handed me down a task and said, Richardson, Cookie Zwane is disturbing me. She's bothering me. Cookie will take a person here in the house and live with them. Next thing we know, that person is arrested. Cookie's an informer. So I took Cookie and went to kill her. Her body was found and I was not arrested for that case. Cookie was buried and her parents did not cry about Cookie. Now that is one of the things I want to show the TRC, that I used to do bad things like this.
We had no way of establishing the truth about this murder, apart from getting confirmation that Cookie Zwane's dead body was found in 1989. One complicating factor we had to keep in mind was the widespread allegations that Richardson was working with the security police. There is a real possibility that he could even have been an agent provocateur. In fact, it now seems that most people in the drama surrounding Madikizela-Mandela had some connection with the security police, including the star witness in the BBC documentary, Katiza Qebekulu. We have never encountered a muddier investigation. It seems as if all the perpetrators and participants are either lying or telling half-truths or hiding something. The Special Report's interest in this story lies not with Winnie and who she is or was, but with human rights violations committed in our past. 2 boys connected with Madikizela-Mandela were killed in one wild year, 1988. Stompie Sepe was a teenage activist from Paris, and Lolo Sono was a Soweto youngster. Winnie accused them both of being spies.
They said it was on the 29th of December in 1988 when Stompie was taken from the Methodist Church together with his friends. They were taken to Mrs. Winnie Mandela's house. They said to me, they don't know. They are still searching for Stompie. They don't know whether is he alive or is he dead. And they told me that his friends told them that his brain was leaking.
We are still not at ease. I'm having nightmares, dreams. Sometimes I hear knocks on the door, thinking that it is Lolo. When I'm sleeping, I can see him flying from the sky, coming home, saying that, Mom, I'm back home. Then I'll open my arms and try to hug him and said, welcome home. I am pleading with Mrs. Mandela today in front of the world that please, Mrs. Mandela, please give us our son back. Even if Lolo is dead, let Mrs. Mandela give us the remainings of our son.
But let's start at the beginning. In 1977, Winnie was banished to Brandfort. When she came back to Soweto after a severe illness in 1988, she must have harbored a great deal of frustration and anger about her treatment by the police. She surrounded herself with a group of boys and young men whom she called the Mandela United Football Club. this team only played one match. By late 1989, the Mandela Football Club, coached by Jerry Richardson, had become the terror of the township. Also in Orlando West was popular Methodist minister Paul Verheyen. Winnie seems to have disliked Verheyen's influence. According to most characters in this drama, Winnie decided to discredit Verheyen. This is where Katiza Qebekulu comes into the picture. Qebekulu told the BBC that Winnie sent him to stay at the Methodist mission and there to accuse Verheyen of rape. It was at this point that things went horribly wrong for Madikizela-Mandela. Qebekulu told Verheyen's assistant, Koliswa Falati, that he was raped. She took him to Winnie Mandela, who immediately ordered Richardson and his gang to kidnap the boys staying with Verheyen and take them to her house in Diepkloof. Stompie Sepe was one of them.
We beat them up, man. You know, we have shamboks at the kangaroo court. We have canes. You know, we used every method that we knew that would make them tell more truth than what they had told us. Stompie to start with him. I lifted him, together with Slash, not with Mrs. Mandela. Mrs. Mandela was sitting on the side. We lifted him from the roof height and we left him and he would hit the floor. I'm sure 7 or 8 times, up until we saw that he was near dying.
She is the
one who started. She started hitting with a fist. She used to wear rings on her fingers, and she had been gymming. I didn't know about that. She hit right on the eye.
Katiza Qebekulu's version of the assault is virtually the same. But Qebekulu goes further. He says he went to the toilet that night and saw people near the jacuzzi in Mandela's house.
I saw Mrs. Mandela wearing long clothes. How I know it was Mrs. Mandela? I know there was a moon, not that full moon, but a moon that you can see. This is a woman, this is a man, this is a boy. She was holding something shiny like knife, and Richardson was coming with other people. I did not see them properly. They were near to the swimming pool, to the jacuzzi. I saw Mrs. Mandela holding something shiny. He used their hands twice. Soon as I see that, I come scared.
But on Friday, Jerry Richardson told us that Qebekulu was lying.
Stompie, there's no other person who killed him except for me and Slash, with instructions from Mrs. Mandela and Sonwabo. We took him and we threw him at Noord Geser. We walked there. We did not use a car. It was me, Slash and him. Stompie was walking with his own feet. Now we were going to kill him there. As we are working with him like that, we have a pair of scissors, we have okapis on us. We then decided that an okapi knife won't do anything to him. It won't kill him, he's strong. So we then decided we would stab him with scissors. Indeed, when we arrived there near New Canada, we mutilated him. We put a scissor through his throat, and it went out on the other side. It won't cut him like this. So we then used the okapis to slit his throat.
We have no way to determine which of the two versions of Stompie's death is true. The Supreme Court accepted that these boys were kidnapped and assaulted, and Winnie was eventually convicted of kidnapping. Stompie was only the first to die. The day after he died, Madikizela-Mandela took Qebekulu to Dr. Abubakar Asfat. She wanted medical confirmation of Qebekulu's rape story. Asfat found no evidence of rape and refused to issue a certificate. He did state that Qebekulu was mentally confused and that he cried occasionally. Asfat also examined Stompie and the other boys before Stompie died. Qebekulu told the BBC that Winnie Mandela ordered him to show 2 unknown young men where Asfat's surgery was. Asfat was shot to death on 27 January 1989. Asfat's brother Ibrahim says the prosecutor in the Asfat murder trial showed him a document proving that the 2 killers were given 20,000 rand to get rid of Asfat. It was never used in court. Last week, Nicholas Dlamini, who is serving a life sentence for Asfat's murder, told the Mail and Guardian that it was Winnie Mandela who ordered the killing. But Asfat was not the last victim in this drama. Young Lolo Sono was keen on becoming a football club member, but Winnie accused him of being a police spy. Richardson and Winnie took Lolo to his parents.
My son Lolo was in the Kumbi. He appeared badly beaten. His face was bruised. and he was shivering. So Mrs. Mandela told me that she's taking Winnie away, Lolo away, because they labeled him as a spy. I pleaded with Winnie for more than an hour not to take my son away, but in vain.
Kebekulu also fell out of favor when he says he found photographs of a naked Winnie with her lover. He was arrested by the security police, but in an unexplained twist, handed over to Winnie. He claims that she and her bodyguards beat him up badly. He says she offered him a choice between leaving the country and being dealt with by her. ANC security men smuggled him to Lusaka, where he was jailed. By the end of 1991, Richardson was in jail, serving life for the murder of Stompie. Winnie was sentenced to 6 years for kidnapping, later reduced to a fine on appeal, and Falati was sentenced to 10 years for assault and kidnapping. In the townships, the UDF and ANC structures were upset with the behavior of Winnie and her bodyguards. They formed a special crisis committee consisting of Cyril Ramaphosa, Murphy Morobe, Sister Bernard Nkube, Sidney Mufamadi, Abri Mokwena, Frank Shikane, and Bayers Nodia.
We are particularly outraged at her obvious complicity in the recent abductions and assault on young people like Stompie. We believe that had Stompie and his 3 colleagues not been abducted by Mrs. Mandela's football team, he would have been alive today. The mass democratic movement, at this point, hereby wishes to distance itself from Mrs. Mandela and her actions. We call on our people, in particular the Soweto community, to exercise this distancing in a dignified manner.
It is clear that the police investigating Madikizela-Mandela and her football club did not do their work properly. The prosecution, too, was clearly flawed. Could the apartheid state have been part of a bizarre cover-up, possibly because of their agents' roles? What role did the ANC play then, and what role are they playing now? Why did they take Sebukulu out of the country, and why was he never brought back? This is a story of cover-up layered upon cover-up. We hope things will become clearer when Winnie appears before the Truth Commission later this month, and when Kebekulu, Richardson and Lamini testify before the Amnesty Committee.
I will take this opportunity to say to the family of Dr. Asfat how deeply sorry I am, and to Stompie's mother how deeply sorry I am. I have said so to her before a few years back when the heat was very hot. I am saying it is true. Things went horribly wrong. I fully agree with that. And for that part of those painful years when things went horribly wrong and we were aware of the fact that there were factors that led to that, for that I am deeply sorry.
And I know it was dug around a little bit in the TRC, but nobody got anywhere conclusive with it. And what I was told by Henk Heslinger, who's the white policeman, Henk Heslinger, who's the white policeman in the film, who is brought into the operation,
and who's still alive,
and he was sent in 1994 to go and talk to Jerry Richardson in jail when he was in the maximum security jail. And what they discovered when they went there was that Jerry said, yes, we know I killed Stompie, and I killed him because he had found out that I was an agent. And I killed him so that I could cover my tracks.
A 12-year-old? What did it matter?
Know, but the point I'm trying
why would he kill a 12-year-old because he discovered that he was an informer?
Because what he knew was that there was a huge shootout at Jerry's house where two very senior cadres of MK.
I placed them there.
I know, you placed them there.
I placed them there as I was placing all the underground activists.
Absolutely. But
Yeah.
so you placed them there for safekeeping, and
For safekeeping, yes.
They got killed, and they got killed because Jerry Richardson was paid 30,000 rand in order to give the information that that's where they were.
Yes.
Okay? Now, when the white policeman comes to interrogate, well, not to interrogate, to talk with him in jail in 1994, Jerry says, "I was owed 30,000 rand for that information."
That he was
And
what?
He was owed that by the state, which was in effect the apartheid state. Should have paid him and never did. Well, the policeman now, in 1994, went back, checked their records, found this to be true, and then paid him in 1994.
He was paid?
He was paid. And because he was...
I don't believe that.
And because he was in jail...
When he was in jail, what did he do with the money?
Exactly, well, that was the point. Because he was in jail, he said, "I can't spend this money, so instead, will you buy me a diamond solitaire so I can give it..."
A diamond?
A diamond engagement ring, solitaire, so that I can give it to my fiancée, this woman I have fallen in love with.
Was that woman in jail or where?
I have a suspicion that...
He didn't mean Falati?
I think he meant Falati.
Because they were lovers with Falati.
Exactly. So in the film, when you see Jerry Richardson get out of that armoured car, when he's going into the TRC,
yeah,
he's carrying the book. That book that was written, that very damning book that was written with the Katiza Kebukulu.
Yes, I mean it was written by the security branch.
Right, well, that book, why is he carrying it? He's been in a maximum security jail. He's carrying it because Koliswa Falati has given it to him, because she's also carrying it when she comes into the TRC and she shouts at you saying that you're a murderer, etc. So there's an enormous story here that I would have loved.
And there he goes to die.
Yeah, and then he goes to die. But he was paid, and he was paid in 1994.
So this other policeman is still alive?
Yeah. Mm-hmm.
You must give me his particulars.
The problem with Winnie Mandela is that she refuses to fit neatly into a single story. History prefers simple heroes, simple villains, people who can be easily celebrated or easily condemned. Winnie Mandela was neither, and perhaps that is why her legacy remains one of the most fiercely debated in South African history. Because on one hand, there is the Winnie Mandela who stood defiantly against apartheid when doing so came at an enormous personal cost. The Winnie Mandela who endured arrests, surveillance, imprisonment, banishment and isolation. The Winnie Mandela who kept the spirit of resistance alive while many of the movement's leaders were imprisoned, underground or in exile. The Winnie Mandela who inspired millions. The Winnie Mandela who became a symbol of courage for people who had almost nothing left to believe in. Without her, the story of South Africa's liberation struggle would be incomplete. That much is undeniable. But there is another side to the story, a side that cannot simply be ignored because it is uncomfortable. The controversies, the allegations, the violence, the decisions that damaged her reputation, the moments that left even some of her closest allies questioning her judgment. These were not inventions of the apartheid government, nor were they minor footnotes in an otherwise flawless life. They were real, and they became part of her legacy. That is what makes Winnie Mandela so difficult to discuss. To ignore her contributions would be dishonest, but to ignore her flaws would be equally dishonest. The truth lies somewhere in between. Perhaps Winnie Mandela was ultimately a product of the struggle itself. A woman shaped by decades of conflict, by constant persecution, by loss, by anger, by a system so brutal that it left scars on everyone it touched. That does not excuse her mistakes, but it may help explain them. And maybe that is why, even today, South Africans continue to argue about who Winnie Mandela really was. Was she a hero? Yes. Was she flawed? Undeniably. Can both things be true at the same time? Perhaps that is the real answer, because the story of Winnie Mandela is not the story of a saint. It is not the story of a monster. It is the story of a human being, a remarkable one, a controversial one, a woman capable of extraordinary courage and profound mistakes. And maybe that complexity is exactly why she still matters. Years after her death, her name continues to spark debate, not because people have forgotten her, but because they haven't. Because no matter where one stands on Winnie Mandela, her impact on South Africa is impossible to erase. She helped shape the struggle, she helped shape the conversation, and she helped shape the country itself. History may never fully agree on how she should be remembered. But perhaps remembrance was never the question. Perhaps the question is whether South Africa can accept that some of its most important figures were neither entirely heroes nor entirely villains, that they were both, that they were human. And if that is true, then Winnie Mandela's legacy may not be a contradiction at all. It may simply be a reflection of South Africa itself, complicated, painful, resilient, and forever unfinished.